Strippers and bouncers of strip clubs, what's the most memorable thing to happen to you, good or bad, while working? Ex-bouncer here. Our club security participated in some partner gig that the owner had with his buddy who owned another club. We were never introduced to his buddy. They told us to be extra tight on the front stage area security. Well, shithead comes up in there looking like he thinks he's getting past me discreetly, and I tell him he has to back it up and leave. He backs up about 1 foot length and stays watching the performers. I give him a final warning and even tell him that I'll be forced to personally escort him out. He pretends to not hear me, so I pick his ass up and begin carrying him off premises and to the entrance. Meanwhile, he's screaming the name of my boss, all pissy sounding. Turns out I was canning my boss's business partner from his own gig. I was pretty embarrassed but also didn't regret anything because I was doing my job and he basically asked for it. Later that night, about an hour and a half later and only 10 minutes after the show ended, had a seizure. They had to call the EMTs and everything. I woke up feeling awful, and that same business partner of my boss's who had been a huge asshole was crouched down speaking to me very kindly and making sure I was okay. I'll never forget that. Stripper here. Very first night stripping, some old guy in overalls with pretty poor dental hygiene asked me how many fillings I have. I told him 1. He asked if it was silver or gold. Silver. Then he asks if I will open my mouth and let him look at my teeth. I was pretty timid, so I did, and he complained it was too dark to see well. A few months later I see him again in another club, but he has a fucking flashlight this time. He tells me he wants a dance, and then when we get to the back says that he really just wants to look at my teeth. So I open my mouth and he's annoyed at my 1 filling and otherwise healthy teeth. He insisted I find a girl with bad teeth, so I said I'd find one and then hid in the dressing room until he left. That I also used to have a regular who liked to touch my armpits and liked for me to kick him in the balls. One time he asked me to watch porn with him. He was watching CGI porn with Harley Quinn and Poison Ivy, but they both had dicks. I worked in a club that had a catwalk type addition to the stage, and at the end of it was a spinning pole. It was very poorly designed as it was not a very wide space around the pole. So the sheer amount of people I'd accidentally kick in the face while doing pole tricks is insane, and like 80% of them would apologize to me and tip me for ruining my flow. I always got a bit of a giggle about that. Also, hands down the worst was getting projectile vomited on while giving a lap dance, sad face like but naked, covered head to toe in puke, and not even an apology. Former stripper, here. I had a guy come in and buy 60 minutes in the champagne room just to give me a totally normal back massage the entire time. Had another guy spend $100 just to smell my feet. Edited. I remembered this gem. Another chatty, middle-aged guy paid for 30 minutes in the champagne room, $160, and 10 minutes into it, I'm no longer dancing and he's having a serious discussion with me about investing in the stock market. I actually learned a lot of great advice. What would 60 minutes in the champagne room normally buy? I mean, I'm sure Chris Rock was accurate and all, but what is and isn't in bounds? Edit. This sounded pretty creepy. Never having invested to go to the champagne room, I always just assumed it was a lap dance in a different place. I don't think the curtain magically divides the strip club from the brothel or anything. Former stripper. I had a guy buy 2 lap dances from me and spent the time in the booth holding me and massaging my back. He had just gotten out of prison where he had been for 23 years for double homicide. He insisted that he was innocent, but he witnessed it and told me a wild story about a cocaine-fueled car theft ring in the 80s that he was a part of. He also offered me $500 to go to his hotel room and have a bubble bath and another massage. I refused, but another girl I worked with had taken him up on a similar offer a few nights before and said, "He's really not that bad." Edit. There was another guy who liked to be called Big Daddy. He was nearly deaf and couldn't understand a single thing I said, but he would just pass me $20 bills every few minutes while I listened to him talk about his fishing tackle business. And the time a guy jizzed in his pants during a lap dance and got mad at me about it. Also, thanks for the silver, kind stranger. Bouncer here. Had a guy have a mental break, steal a car, steal a loaded .45, and came to my bar talking about how he learned that he was God, and could take anything he wanted. He proceeded to run to the back of the bar to the Christmas tree, December 2018, and start opening presents that a biker gang had left for their party that was going to happen that night. He was arrested shortly after. Edit. I know to call them motorcycle clubs now. I guess it does make sense that the word gang gives a lot of good people a bad rap as soon as you say it. Thanks for helping me learn something today, everyone. Edit 2. I am a bouncer for a bar, not a strip club. Forgot to mention that. I was going to use a throwaway, but fuck it. I was a stripper in my 20s for a couple of years. The absolute most memorable thing was when everyone working at the club dropped acid. Save for I think 1 or 2 girls, the bouncer, the DJ, the stage guy, the house mom, the door guy, and about 10 to 15 girls were just high AF for the whole night, and it was so hilarious and great. It was a very slow night, I'm thinking dead of winter on a Tuesday, or something, and I guess we all just said, fuck it, and all took a hit. Can't remember who brought it. At one point I remember feeling really paranoid that I'd be found out, and then realizing that, I'm a stripper and literally nobody cared that I was high. That was so liberating. It was a night of naked girls goofing off on stage, awesome and weird music we normally weren't allowed to play, our club band rap at the time, trying on all the costumes, and just a general blast. Nobody made money. We didn't even try. It was one of the most memorable trips I have ever had. Ex-stripper here. Funniest, I fell off the pole and busted my back, but I was dancing for a nice regular and he didn't make too much fun of me. Or maybe the time my work wife and I did a doubles dance for a guy who DJ'd at another club and all he wanted to do was smell our butt cracks and feet good, hula hooping on stage while it's slow. A sweet 21 or 22 years old guy who paid $250 to tell me how pretty I was for 15 minutes in the champagne room. Getting a guy interested by talking about World of Warcraft, lol. He bought 7 dances. Bad guy who grabbed my bare pussy, fully nude club, during a dance. I reacted on instinct and grabbed him by the throat, which worked, but I was lucky it didn't escalate the situation and he backed off. You know when you almost get into a car accident and you don't think to beep your horn? I had that, except the last thing on my mind was calling the bouncers for help when that should have been first.